So, bloomers have been taking over the internet lately, and I find that quite interesting. Regarding its use and purpose throughout fashion history, I decided to make a pattern, and I'm going to show you how to make your own pair of bloomers. So first I start by laying my pattern down and thinking about the aspects of the design for the type of bloomer I want, and that affects how I cut everything out. But I followed my pattern piece, lined everything, cut out the front bloomers and back, and I also cut out the waistband. So bloomers, from underwear to outerwear, these were loose-fitted trousers, and they gained popularity more when women's sports was becoming a phenomenon, and people started acknowledging that exercise was actually quintessential for any person's health. But these are just loose-fitted trousers that end at the knee, or it can go below the knee. This garment was pushed by Amelia Bloomer, hence the name, as a garment for the suffragette movement. Once you're done cutting out all of the pattern pieces, you're going to pin together and sew the front and back side seams to each other, and also their inseam. So here I am pinning the side seams together, and I just want to talk more about this pattern that I made. It is on my website. It's only $5, and it's the very first digital pattern that I've made for sale. Overall, these bloomers can just be personalized to however you see fit. As you'll see, there's lots of ways to personalize them, but this video is technically sponsored by me, so let me know how you like this pattern, and let's continue on. Now that I've got everything pinned together, it's finally time to sew it. Throughout this process, I'm just showing you that making sure you press and iron and as you finish your seams is important, but I was also showing you that because I utilized the selvage of my fabric, I did not have to finish the seams, which is completely historically accurate. So now that you flip the two inside out, you're going to sew the inseam, so you're going to match this seam and this seam and pin them together, and basically sew along this curve. And also, if you are trying to do more of a Edwardian bloomers, then you can keep this as a split so it opens, so you only actually have to finish this by hand and then sew this onto a waistband, and you'll have some split drawers. But yeah, so what I'm going to do now is sew this seam together, and then I will figure out if I want to add a ruffle on the bottom here. Anyways, about the recent rise in bloomers, it's pretty surprising that people like these, but I can completely understand why. It's not in the fact that they look bad, but it's just the fact of their original functionality and original purpose and how that's being conveyed today that I find really interesting. Not in just the political aspects, but just in providing that freedom of movement and breathability that we all need right now. Now onto my favorite part of the bloomers, the ruffles. So what I did in this case was I measured out how long I wanted my ruffles to be, which was 5 inches including seam allowance, so it'll be 4 inches total. And I I ripped apart 4 strips of this 5-inch ruffle, and I am going to hem that, first serge it, then hem it, and then I'm going to attach it onto these bloomers. But the sound they made while I was like ripping the fabric is so satisfying, so I'm gonna let y'all hear that. Now, before you add the ruffle, it is a good point to see if you want to add insertion lace or insertion trim onto the bottom of your bloomers. That way you can weave a ribbon through and tie it up, and it looks so cute. I'll actually show you another pair of bloomers I made towards the end of this video that have that effect on them, and it just makes the outfit completely more colorful and fun and whimsical. As you sew the ruffles onto the bottom of the bloomers, it's important to stroke your gathers, which is basically a technique of smoothing out your gathers with either a pin, you can use your hands, and just making them lay a bit neater. You can also iron and press them, that also kind of helps. Now that I've sewn the ruffle and the bottom of the bloomers together, I'm just going over it with my serger and full seam. Make sure when you sew the ruffles, you can either gather the top and then sew the two strips together, or you can already sew the strips of the ruffle together and then gather it all up and then match it onto your bloomers. So vlog mode me here. I finally sewed the ruffles onto the bloomers, and now what we need to do is gather the top here to fit the waistband. And actually I will show you how to go about dealing with the waistband situation. Let me read this. So I have a string, like basically a cord that I can draw through these bloomers for the waistband. I'm going to show you how to make a channel for said waistband and also attaching your gathered bloomers onto that. You can make your own DIY drawstring. You just take a thin strip of fabric, however long you need it, and then you can basically put it through a tunnel in your fabric, and I'll show you, and then you can just pull on it and it will gather up. So now it's time to gather this all up, and I will walk you through doing the waistband. So it is completely up to you, but you can add an interfacing in this waistband just if you want a little bit more structure. This will serve as a bit of a marker of where to gather my bloomers, if they need to be gathered more in or maybe less gathered. Sewing this seam down will serve as a good guideline. Basically, it serves as a good guideline to match up with the front center seam, not the back. I actually made an error while sewing this part, so this is why I'm doing a voiceover. So I'm going to take the center back, never mind, scratch it. So I've aligned the seam of this waistband with the center back seam of the bloomers. And what I'm going to do is pin that in place, and I'm basically going to mark the key points of this garment, so the center back and center front. And just to get the center front, I take the midway point of this waistband and I align it with the seam in the front of the bloomers. as you'll see me in the footage, I'm just pinning everything, making sure that things are correct, and then I'm going to finally sew the waistband onto the bloomers. And for this step, just make sure that when you're sewing the waistband, your gathers aren't getting like messed up, and like basically you're just trying to make sure that the fabric that you're attaching a waistband to doesn't bunch anywhere or cause any warping. So just be wary when you are sewing these pieces together. But now it's time to do a bit of rambling, and I actually want to talk about the enthusiasm for like me even doing this video. Thank you guys for recommending me to make a tutorial, because I've gotten a lot of questions about these bloomers, which I didn't expect. I mean, I've always been a bit of a like fashion history nerd, but I didn't expect people to actually like these. So I just really hope that you enjoyed this video, and making sure you share and like and follow helps me out a lot. Now it's time to press this down. So I've pinned down the waistband, and now I'm going to top stitch it down, and then I will show you how to make a channel. Lucky for you, you guys have instructions, because this is me making a sample of what these bloomers are supposed to look like. So I'm like actively creating instructions in my brain. I sewed this waistband. You know how I said to sew this and match it on the back? Don't do that, girlies. Match it on the front. Don't be stupid like me. So, but I know that you guys are following instructions, so you're reading my document. It's just kind of more of a visualizer of how things are going to come together. But if you did make that error, do not worry. All you have to do is add a little slit in the front on both ends and just like whip stitch it down, and then that can serve as an opening for your cord. So, I set my setting to have the needle on the far left side here, and basically what you're going to do is sew along the edge of your waistband, and basically make a little channel here. I'm going to widen my stitch, make it a little bit looser. And I'm going to stitch around this edge like I've been doing, and then I'll show you the second step. But stitch around this edge part here. Leave yourself enough space. It depends on how wide your drawstring is, how close you'll stitch to this edge, because you want to leave enough space where you can put your cord or string or whatever through your waistband. So just be conscious of that when you are sewing in this channel here. But basically, sewing this edge here and then sewing this edge here serves as a pocket to put your drawstring to. I've cut out the length of cord to put through the channel of the bloomers, and that will be done with the sewing process. as this sewing video concludes, I just want you to take away this one thing, and that is be yourself and be involved with history, because history tells you so much about the present day. And I get surprised that people just don't think about fashion history as important, because it absolutely is. You want to know about the people of that time, see what they're wearing. But it's honestly just whether you make these bloomers for historical purposes or just for the lovely aesthetics or even for functionality of having a loose fitting trouser. I hope that you can make it you and that you enjoy this piece, and happy sewing. And here is the reveal, my friends. I hope you've enjoyed this process and stay whimsical. Bye.